Hello everyone, I'm Paul and welcome to Gelling Outdoors. Today I'm going to talk about my sawmill. It's a Woodland Mills HM122. It's the 10th anniversary edition. I'm going to bring you in closer and take a look at the 6 dislikes first, and then we'll move on to the 10 likes. Let's get it started. Okay, my first dislike is the dashboard here at the back side of the sawmill. And as you can see here, it's just a solid piece of steel going across, and it's for structure. I understand that. It holds the little timer, the hour meter. Currently I only have 36 hours on my mill, and a lot of that is just idle time, not actual production time. What I don't like about it is that it's not very functional other than a structural support, where it could have been a lot better. And something to the idea of maybe having it designed like a glove box where I can put my measuring tape and some other tools if I want inside, like if it had a little pocket in here rather than just a flat piece of steel. My second dislike is this index plunger on the handle of the crank or the winch here. What happens is that I don't use it a lot, so I leave it out like this, and when I'm turning the crank wheel, sometimes what happens is the vibration causes it to flip into place, and as I'm cranking it, it jams all of a sudden. I don't really like that very much. I'm thinking about actually removing that completely. I don't find that the head moves at all, whether I have it locked into place or not. It stays pretty stable. My third dislike is the distance between the log bunks. This is that at the far end, and as we go down, you can see how far of a distance there is between each log bunk. What I find is that when I'm cutting short logs or logs of a certain length, is that there's too much, especially at this end here. What happens from here, I end up with logs that are sticking out to here, and there is no support for this part of the log. So what I would like is that if one of these log bunks was adjustable or floating, so that I can move it back and forth at any position. My fourth dislike is the tensioner for the blade. Once I crank it up, and this one here, you don't need to use a torque wrench. You just tighten it up until this is flush over here. What happens because of vibration is that it backs off all the time. And I don't always pay attention to it, so sometimes it comes back quite a bit. And what happens is the blade becomes a little bit more loose than it should be. So here, I think there should be a locking mechanism once it's been adjusted to the proper tension, but there's nothing to do that. My fifth dislike is the log clamp. Two issues. The first one is that it only comes with one log clamp on a 12-foot standard rail. I would rather have two. It would be much more efficient and more effective. Second is that this is not a quick lock, and since it's not a quick lock, it takes time, a lot of time sometimes, to spin this to get your log adjusted correctly. Also, as you can see here, there's a point, and that point always digs into your newly fresh cut wood, and you don't want that. So what I always have to do is put a piece of wood in between the freshly cut wood and the end of the log stop here. I really don't like that at all. I think it should come standard with 2 quick locks. It would be a much better, make things much better than it is right now. The sixth dislike, and the final one, is that, as you can see here, there is no adjustable blade guide. An adjustable blade guide will allow you to keep your blade a lot tighter and have less flex in it when you're cutting. They do sell it as an optional feature, but I definitely think something like that should be a standard feature, no matter if it adds up a couple more dollars on the cost of the unit. So let's move on to all my likes, and there's quite a few. We got 10 of them coming right up. My first like is the Kohler Command Pro engine that came with the sawmill. It's very fuel efficient, very easy to start. I've had no issues with it, even though I only have 40 hours on it right now, but I've watched many videos of others, and everyone basically loves the engine. The next thing that I have for a like is that here on the side, down at the bottom of the engine, there's a brass oil extension, so when I drain my oil, it's much easier to get at it. That was a very good feature that they've added to it. My third like, as you can see here, that it's pretty beefy. The frame here is a 4-post frame, as you can see on each corner, and it's very sturdy. Right now I'm trying to shake it and I can't even hardly move it. It's a very solid frame. I did see some other sawmills and they are not structurally as sound as what this one is, I can tell you. Not even close. My fourth like is the auto lube system on the sawmill. At the top I have the reservoir, and in the winter time I use windshield washer fluid, and in the summertime I use soap and water. There's an adjustable valve here, and that controls the amount of fluid that will go down onto the blade. And the way it works is that over here I've got my throttle. As I squeeze on the throttle, as you see here, we'll go back to where the engine is and where the tube comes down. There's an actuator in there, and what it does is it allows the fluid to pass through and come down here to the drip pipe, or the drip tube down here at the bottom, and it will allow the fluid to go across onto the blade to keep it nice and cool. It's a pretty neat system. The nice thing about it is that as soon as you let go of the throttle, your fluid stops, so you're not wasting any fluid. My fifth like, and that is how smooth this sawmill moves on its rails. And I think that's because of two factors. One, it's so structurally sound, and it's pretty decent quality metal that they've used, decent quality steel. As you can see, I barely pushed on that, and it rolls. I just give it a little bit of a push, and it rolls really nice. Down at the bottom here, where the rails, you can see here the steel wheels, there's little sweepers, if I can get underneath. Oh, right here. There's little sweepers here. What that does is it keeps the groove clean. So, and they work really well. So, as I mentioned, it rolls really nice, as you can see here. As long as you got your sawmill all squared up and level, the sawmill rolls really nice. There's no effort. I'm barely pushing it or pulling it towards me. And I'm just going to give it, as you can see here, I'll just give it a light little push. And you can see how easy that rolls. Very well designed. My sixth like is the width of these beefy log bunks. It's about 2 1/4 inches or so. And what I find is that when you're putting the log on there, that if you want to put a piece of wood just to raise it up or anything like that, it's so easy to do that. I've seen some of the sawmills where they got really skinny log bunks. I don't think they're quite as good as what these are. These are really decent. Like number 7 is the blade tensioner. My blade tensioner, I don't need to use a torque wrench like many others, where you put a torque wrench at the end here on the nut and tighten it to something like 25 pounds or so. This one, all I have to do is keep cranking it in until this becomes flush here. And that's quite a simple way to do things. As I mentioned earlier in my dislikes, though, is that it vibrates loose, so there needs to be some kind of a locking mechanism. But other than that, it's great. Like number 8, as you can see here, my handle that holds the throttle, and it's also the push bar for when I'm milling. You can see here there's a big space, a big groove here, and what that allows me to do is to adjust my handle to different positions, and I really like that. I am going to move my mill off the trailer that I'm currently using it on, and I'm going to put it on something that's more permanent. It's a great little feature. Like number 9, the HM122 Woodland Mills sawmill comes at a reasonable price, plus a flat rate for shipping. Overall, for what you get, and for other sawmills that I looked at, I think you get a pretty good bang for your buck. The machine is very structurally sound. It runs well, starts all the time, cuts well, as long as you have a sharp blade, just like anything else. But in the short time that I've had it, the only issue that I've had right now here, as you can see on one of the bunks, is the paint has peeled. but that's my own fault that peeled. I had some plastic on there, and by having the plastic that I had on there, it caused it to get too much moisture underneath. So guys, that brings us to like number 10, and that is technical support. Technical support is in two means. One, when you receive the sawmill, the owner's manual is fantastic. It's very clear and precise at how to assemble this sawmill. In addition to that, it has a parts diagram, so if you ever need to order anything, it's very easy to look up and reference whatever you're going to need. The second thing is, I did call them when I was assembling this sawmill. What I needed assistance for was the blade tracking, and they were very, very helpful, and we got things figured out really quick. So my experiences with them have been fantastic, and I've also have one of their trailers, multi-lander, and I had called them for assistance for that as well, and they're fantastic to talk to. They work with you really well. So they're second to none as far as a company, as far as technical support goes. I definitely recommend them. The sawmill overall is a great sawmill for the price, I believe. In my opinion, at least, it's not a very expensive overall for what you're getting. There are some creature features maybe that you would like. Maybe you want electric start or whatever else there is, but those are things that you're going to have to pay up for, and you should. Basically, man has gotten a little bit lazier, I think, over the years, so we want more features, more comforts, so we got to pay for them. Unfortunately, drives the price up for some of us that want things more simplistic. But if you want a good starter mill, this is fantastic, and I highly recommend it. So that's basically it for today, and if you've enjoyed my video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, share it with a friend, and if you have not subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button down below. I would really appreciate that. And if you have subscribed, I thank you kindly, and we'll see you next time on Jellin' Outdoors.